The millionaire's twins were mute. One day the new nanny arrived and did something the other nannies had never managed to do. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe. You're hired, but you are not to involve yourself with my children beyond what is strictly necessary. Your job here is to clean, nothing more. Those words still echoed in Chloe Martinez's mind as she scrubbed the living room floor with a mop that looked like it had survived a medieval battle. She stopped for a moment, glanced at her reflection in the marble, adjusted her bright pink jumpsuit that made her look like the Pink Panther, and slid on her knees as if she were surfing. "Wow, 3 points for Chloe in artistic cleaning," she said, lifting the mop like a trophy. Chloe began to hum softly, making up her own tune. "Dirt, go away. Stress, disappear. I've come to shake this floor." But she didn't know she was being watched. At the door, 2 little eyes spied on her in silence. Leo and Noah, 6-year-old identical twins. Quiet, serious, frozen in time since the day they lost their mother. Chloe's song became more upbeat. She twirled dramatically with the mop, accidentally hit the bucket, and sent a rag flying like a dove of peace which landed directly on the face of a marble bust. "Oops, sorry, Mr. Statue, I hope you won't press charges." And then it happened. A small laugh, then another. Soft, timid, but very real. Chloe stopped, looked toward the door. Nobody. Am I hearing little ghosts, or has this house finally found something funny? Upstairs in his office, Ethan Caldwell, billionaire CEO, widower, master of coldness and sharp orders, watched everything on the surveillance monitors. The dance, the choreographed disaster, the unintentional mess, and the smiles. The smiles he hadn't seen in 2 years. A corner of his mouth twitched slowly. And then, against all odds, he laughed. A quiet, brief laugh, but enough to surprise even himself. The next day, Chloe arrived earlier, this time with a new accessory, a tape measure around her neck. No one knew if it was part of her costume or if she thought she could measure the house's negative energy. She passed the twins in the hallway. She stopped, smiled. "Good morning, gentlemen of silence. Today we have a special cleaning offer. If you give me a smile, I'll sing you Baby Shark Samba style." They didn't answer. They just stared at her. Chloe continued on her way. In the middle of her cleaning, she felt something strange. She turned around. Leo was standing in the doorway and she heard a sound. Faint, hoarse but clear, almost like a hi. Chloe's eyes widened. "Hey, hi," he repeated. She pointed to herself. "Me, the cleaning lady?" "Chloe's, did you say hi?" He nodded, then started laughing and ran off as if he had just stolen a treasure. Noah followed him, laughing too. Chloe stood there, holding her mop like a magic scepter, a slight knowing smile on her lips, and whispered, "Hi to you both, my little ones." Ethan never said a word about what he'd seen on the cameras, but something in his routine began to change. For the first time in 2 years, he started leaving the office earlier, always with the same excuse. "I have to check that everything's okay at home." The truth was, he wanted to see Chloe in action. And Chloe? Well, Chloe had turned cleaning into a full-blown show. That Tuesday morning, she arrived humming a song she seemed to have made up on the way. "Dust, go away, dirt, goodbye. Today this house will shine, oh yeah. Oh yeah." She grabbed the vacuum cleaner and started dancing with it as if it were her ballroom partner. She slid down the hall, twirled, and the vacuum followed her like an obedient partner. "Come on, my dear Winston," she said, giving the appliance a name. "Today you'll discover all the corners of this mansion." From upstairs, Ethan watched on the monitor, shaking his head but with an involuntary smile on his lips. Chloe had no idea she was being watched, let alone that 2 pairs of curious eyes were spying on her every move. Leo and Noah were hidden behind the living room sofa, completely fascinated by this woman who turned work into a game. When Chloe approached the toys scattered on the floor, she stopped, looking around as if she were planning a heist. She murmured, picking up a red fire truck. "Looks like we have an emergency here." She gave each toy a different voice. "Help! Help!" she cried in a tiny voice for a doll. "The dust is attacking the city." "Don't worry, citizens," she replied in a deep voice, holding the truck. "The cleaning brigade is here to save the day." Chloe invented a whole story with the little truck chasing dust monsters around the room, mimicking siren noises and dramatic explosions. That's when it happened. A laugh, clear, loud, genuine. Then another. Chloe stopped in the middle of her play and looked around. This time she saw them. Leo and Noah were there, smiling openly, their eyes shining with joy. "Did you like the story?" she asked slowly, approaching them. Noah nodded shyly. Leo took a step forward with a slight smile. Without realizing it, Chloe knelt on the floor and opened her arms. To her surprise, both boys ran straight to her. From his office, Ethan watched, his chest tight. Anger and gratitude battled within him. Chloe had disobeyed his direct orders not to get involved with the children. But for the first time in 2 years, his sons were happy. He was torn between going down to reprimand her and letting this magic continue. The decision was made for him when the housekeeper, who had worked there for 15 years, knocked on his office door. "Mr. Caldwell, I need to speak with you," she said, entering with a stern expression. "What is it, Mrs. Davis?" "It's about the new employee." Ethan frowned. "Chloe, Ms. Albright, the boy's nanny, came to see me this morning. She's very concerned." "Concerned about what?" Mrs. Davis sighed, clearly uncomfortable. "Sir, Chloe is constantly interacting with the children. Not only during her work hours, but she arrives early, stays late, and, well, she's making quite a mess in the house." Ethan kept a neutral expression, but inside he felt his irritation rising. "Go on." "Ms. Albright said that yesterday Chloe turned the living room into, what did she call it? A toy theater. There were toys scattered everywhere. She was singing loudly, making noise." Mrs. Davis paused. "Sir, this is not appropriate behavior for a respectable home." Ethan remained silent for a long moment. He looked at the screen where Chloe was still playing with his sons. "And the boys? How did they react?" Mrs. Davis seemed surprised by the question. "Well, they seemed to enjoy it, sir. But that's not the point. A cleaning lady shouldn't behave like that, especially not with the children of the house." Ethan continued to watch the screen. He saw Leo trying to imitate Chloe's dance moves. He saw Noah laughing at something she said. He saw life where there had only been silence. "Thank you for informing me, Mrs. Davis," he said finally. "I will handle the situation." When Mrs. Davis left, Ethan was left alone with his conflicting thoughts. Chloe had disobeyed him. She had created chaos in his perfectly organized house, but she had given his children something he thought was lost forever: smiles. 3 days later, Chloe was in the middle of her morning routine when something caught her eye. In a corner of the main room, there was a mysterious object covered with a white sheet, as if it had been forgotten by time. "What could possibly be hiding under there?" she whispered, approaching with curiosity. Chloe gently pulled the edge of the fabric and discovered a magnificent grand piano. The ivory keys gleamed even under the layer of dust, and the dark wood had a finish that spoke of elegance and care. "Wow, you're far too beautiful to be hidden away like this," she said, gently running her fingers over the lid. Unable to resist, Chloe sat on the padded bench and placed her hands on the keys. She played a few simple chords, testing the sound. The piano responded with a sweet, melancholy melody that echoed through the room like a long-held sigh. "You have such a lovely voice," she whispered to the instrument, starting to play a gentle song she had learned in her childhood. The melody flowed naturally from her fingers, filling every corner of the mansion with a tenderness the house hadn't known for a very long time. From upstairs, Ethan heard every note as if it were a knife piercing his chest. He dropped the papers he was reading and rushed down the stairs 4 at a time, his face growing paler with each step. When he reached the room, Chloe was still playing, completely absorbed in the music. Her eyes were closed, a small smile on her lips as if she were talking to an old friend. "Stop!" Ethan shouted, startling Chloe, who jumped from the bench as if she'd been electrocuted. Silence fell over the room like a heavy curtain. Ethan stood at the entrance, breathing heavily, his fists clenched, his face a mask of fury and pain. "Mr. Caldwell, I didn't know that," Chloe began, getting up quickly. "You didn't know what?" "That you're not supposed to touch things in this house. That there are rules here?" His voice trembled with contained anger. "I was just cleaning and I saw the piano. I'm sorry, I didn't—" "No one touches that piano," Ethan exploded, striding forward. "No one, do you understand?" Chloe instinctively backed away, but her expression shifted from confusion to something more determined. "I understand you're angry, but I don't understand why. It's just a piano." "Just a piano?" Ethan let out a bitter laugh. "That piano was hers. My wife's. No one has touched it since she died." The silence that followed was different, heavier, filled with a pain that Chloe could almost touch. "Mr. Caldwell, I didn't know. I'm truly sorry," she said, her voice softer. Your apologies don't change the fact that you have once again disrespected this house, Ethan shot back, pointing a finger at her. First with my children and now with this. Fine, you're right about the piano. But about your children? Chloe crossed her arms. You saw them laugh for the first time in years and you still think it was a bad thing? That's none of your business, is it? So then tell me why you keep watching through the cameras when I'm with them. Chloe stepped closer. You're spying on us because you know something good is happening. Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. Your children are alive, Mr. Caldwell. They just need someone to remind them, Chloe continued. And if you fire me for making them smile, then maybe the problem isn't me. How dare you? How dare I? What? Tell the truth. Chloe didn't back down. You've been so busy protecting your pain that you've forgotten to protect their happiness. Ethan remained silent, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on her. And about the piano. Chloe looked at the instrument and then back at him. I'm truly sorry. I didn't know the story. But may I tell you something? Ethan didn't answer, but he didn't move away either. Things only die when we stop thinking about them, she said simply. Music doesn't die, Mr. Caldwell. It just waits for someone to wake it up. Ethan stood motionless for what felt like an eternity. Then, without a word, he turned and went up the stairs, leaving Chloe alone in the room. She sighed, covered the piano with the sheet and went back to her work. But something in the air of the house had changed. For the rest of the day, Chloe noticed the twins stayed closer to her. They followed her down the hallways, no longer hiding but openly curious. Want to help, boys? She asked, holding out 2 small cloths. Leo grabbed one and tried to imitate her movements. Noah did the same, but so clumsily that Chloe burst out laughing. A very good cleaning team. Now let's create our magic words. She started making up silly words. When the dirt is stubborn, we shout, Zumba Lumba Cha. Zumba Lumba Cha, the boys repeated, laughing. And when the vacuum chokes, we say Piripaka coffee. A Piripaka coffee, they shouted between bursts of laughter. And when we're all done, we celebrate with Babaloo Chubaloo. Babaloo Chubaloo! The twins jumped for joy, delighted by the ridiculous sounds. Chloe had turned cleaning into a game of magic words, and the boys were completely charmed. From his office, Ethan heard the laughter echoing through the house. Each sound was like a distant memory of a time when these walls still knew joy. He tried to focus on his reports, but the words on the screen blurred. His hands trembled slightly. That night, after Chloe had left and the boys were asleep, Ethan went downstairs. The house was silent. Only the ticking of the living room clock broke the quiet. He stopped in front of the covered piano. Slowly, he removed the sheet. The keys shone in the soft lamplight. Ethan sat on the bench, his hands hovering uncertainly over the keyboard. He played one note, then another. Gradually, his fingers found a familiar melody, his wife's favorite, the one she would play on Sunday mornings while the coffee brewed in the kitchen. Ethan played carefully, as if the keys were made of glass. Each chord carried a memory. Her smile when she caught him listening from the doorway. The way she would sway her head to the rhythm of the music. How she would hum softly. Silent tears rolled down his face. For the first time in 2 years, Ethan Caldwell wasn't just remembering his wife. He was honoring her memory. And from the top of the stairs, 2 small figures watched in silence. Leo and Noah had come down for a drink of water and had found their father playing the piano. They looked at each other and without a sound went back to their room. The next morning, when Chloe arrived, she was greeted by 2 cheerful voices. Zumba Lamba Cha, Auntie Chloe, Babaloo Chubaloo. She burst out laughing, hugged them both and whispered, Today, we're going to make up even sillier words. And for the first time since she had arrived in this house, Chloe felt that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Even if her boss still looked at her with that complicated gaze she could never quite decipher, even if she knew she was walking on dangerous ground. The next morning, Chloe arrived with her usual cheerful mood. But when she entered the twins' room for the daily cleaning, she found a scene that made her stop in her tracks. Leo and Noah were lying on the bed, huddled together, their faces sad, so different from the joy of the past few days. Their little faces were turned toward the window, as if they were waiting for something that would never come. Hey, my dynamic duo, Chloe said softly as she entered. What's wrong? You look like little birds without a nest. The boys looked at her but didn't move. Chloe felt her heart ache. "Can I sit here with you?" she asked, gesturing to the edge of the bed. Leo nodded, and Chloe lay down between them, staring at the ceiling. "You know, when I was little and I was sad, my grandmother used to tell me silly stories to cheer me up. Do you want to hear one?" Noah turned toward her, curious. "Once upon a time," Chloe began in a dramatic voice, "there were 3 terrible monsters who terrorized a whole town. The first was the messy hair monster, with huge teeth and sharp claws." The boys moved closer. "The second was the cold soup monster, who spat ice and froze everything. And the third," she paused for effect, "was the stinky socks monster who had the most terrible power of all." "What power?" Leo asked, forgetting his sadness. "He could make people faint just by taking off his shoes." Chloe pretended to faint dramatically. The twins burst out laughing. "But one day," she continued, "a heroine appeared. Stinky Sock Girl. She had a special superpower. Her socks were so smelly that even the monsters were afraid of her." "How?" Noah asked, laughing. "She would get close to the monsters, take off her shoes." Chloe pretended to remove invisible socks, and they would scream, "Oh no, what a horrible smell! Let's get out of here!" And they would run far, far away. The boys were laughing so hard their stomachs hurt. Chloe continued the story, using funny voices for each character, exaggerated gestures and silly noises that completely erased the twins' sadness. From the doorway, Ethan watched. He had come down to get a report and had heard the laughter. Seeing Chloe lying on the bed with his sons, telling them absurd stories that made them laugh with all their hearts, he felt something strange in his chest, an impulse to go in, to join this moment of pure happiness. He took a step forward but stopped. This wasn't his place. This magic belonged to Chloe and the children. He went back to his office, but the image remained etched in his mind. 15 minutes later, Ms. Albright, the twins' official nanny, entered the room and discovered the scene. Chloe was still lying on the bed, the boys nestled in her arms, all of them laughing at a story about a dragon who was afraid of popcorn. "What is going on here?" the nanny asked in a stern voice. Chloe quickly got up, smoothing down her jumpsuit. "Good morning, Ms. Albright. I was just cleaning the room and the boys seemed sad, so—" "That's not your job," the nanny cut her off, crossing her arms. "I were hired to clean, not to play nanny." "I know, but they looked so down and I just wanted to—" "You just wanted to what? Encroach on my responsibilities?" Ms. Albright stepped closer. "This is the 3rd time this week I've found you where you shouldn't be." Chloe felt her irritation rise. "Listen, Ms. Albright, I respect your job, but how many times have I seen these boys alone and sad while you were on the phone or reading a magazine?" "How dare you accuse me?" "So I'm not accusing you. I'm just saying that maybe, just maybe, they need a little more attention." Chloe kept her tone firm but respectful. "I just want to make them happy. Making them happy is not your job. You're a cleaning lady, and you're a nanny who seems to have forgotten how to take care of children." Ms. Albright's face turned red with anger. "We'll see what Mr. Caldwell has to say about this," she snapped, storming out of the room. Chloe sighed, looking at the twins who had watched everything with wide eyes. "I'm sorry you had to see that, boys. Auntie Chloe just wants you to be happy, okay?" They nodded and ran to hug her. In the office, Ms. Albright knocked loudly on the door. "Mr. Caldwell, I need to speak with you immediately." "Come in," Ethan said without looking up from his papers. "Sir, I can't take it anymore. That woman is completely out of control." The nanny gestured nervously. "Today, I found her lying on the bed with the children." "Lying down, Mr. Caldwell?" Ethan looked up. "And what else?" "She disrespected me, questioned my work, said I wasn't taking proper care of the boys." Ms. Albright's voice grew higher and higher. "Sir, I have worked for respectable families for 15 years. I have never suffered such humiliation." Ethan was silent for a moment. "Ms. Albright, do you want me to fire Chloe?" "Yes, immediately, or I quit. I can't work under these conditions." Ethan sighed. "Very well, stay here. I'll take care of it now." He went downstairs and found Chloe in the twins' room, tidying up the toys while humming softly. The boys were helping her, handing her the items. "Chloe," he said from the doorway. She turned around, already expecting trouble. "Yes, Mr. Caldwell. I have asked you several times not to get involved with my children. You don't listen." "Mr. Caldwell, I can explain—" "You're fired," he said curtly. The silence in the room fell like a bomb. Chloe felt her legs go weak, but she clung to her dignity. I understand, she said, her voice trembling. I'll gather my things. At that moment, Leo and Noah, who had been listening from the bathroom door, rushed into the room. No! Leo shouted, clinging to Chloe's right leg. Chloe stays, Noah said, holding tightly to her left leg. Ethan froze. His sons, who had barely spoken for 2 years, were now speaking clearly to defend the cleaning lady. Chloe is nice, Leo said, looking at his father with tears in his eyes. Dad, Chloe stays, Noah pleaded. Chloe knelt and hugged them both. It's okay, my loves. Your dad knows what's best. Ethan watched the scene, his children crying, clinging to the woman who had brought light back into their lives. The woman he was firing for, following strict rules that perhaps no longer made sense. Without a word, he went back to his office. Ms. Albright was waiting, a triumphant smile on her face. So, sir, has she left yet? Ethan looked her straight in the eye. Ms. Albright, I've changed my mind. Chloe will not be fired. The nanny's smile vanished. What do you mean, sir? We had an agreement. The agreement was that I would handle the situation, and I have. Chloe stays. But, sir, this is unacceptable. It's either her or me. Ethan sighed. Then, Ms. Albright, I accept your resignation. Mrs. Davis will handle your final payment. The nanny stood there, dumbfounded. Mr. Caldwell, you can't be serious. I am perfectly serious. Good day. Half an hour later, Ethan found Chloe in the kitchen, teaching the twins how to arrange the utensils by size. Chloe, he called. She turned around, clearly nervous. Mr. Caldwell, I was just getting ready to leave. From now on, you can also take care of the children, he interrupted. I'll pay you 3 times as much for your work. You'll still be responsible for the cleaning, but the boys will be the priority. Chloe's eyes widened. Really? Are you sure? I am, but on one condition. Never touch the piano again without permission. I promise, she said, smiling. The twins jumped for joy, hugging Chloe's legs again. The next day, Chloe had a brilliant idea. Mr. Caldwell, she said, appearing at the office door. How about you help us with a special cleaning today? What do you mean? The boys want their dad to join our magic cleaning team. Ethan looked at his sons, who were standing behind Chloe, making pleading faces. Dad, come on, Leo said. It's fun, Noah added. Against all his businessman instincts, Ethan gave in. The cleaning operation turned into a complete comedic chaos. Ethan, wearing casual clothes for the first time in years, tried to follow Chloe's instructions, but everything went wrong. He knocked over the water bucket 3 times, slipped on the soap, got tangled in the vacuum hose, and nearly knocked over a bookshelf trying to catch himself. Dad is clumsy, Noah shouted, laughing. Ethan felt tears welling up in his eyes. He bent down and hugged his son tightly. Yes, I'm a clumsy dad, he said, laughing and crying at the same time. He was overwhelmed with emotion, seeing his children talking and being happy after so long. Chloe watched the scene with a small smile that Ethan couldn't quite read. There was something in her eyes, a tenderness mixed with a quiet satisfaction, as if she knew this was just the beginning of something much bigger. The following afternoon, Chloe appeared at Ethan's office with a proposal he never expected to hear. Mr. Caldwell, how about having dinner with your children tonight? Ethan looked up from his reports, frowning. We always have dinner together in the dining room at 7 p.m. sharp. No, Chloe shook her head, smiling. I'm talking about a real dinner. In the kitchen, without Mrs. Davis serving, without porcelain plates, without starched napkins. Just the 3 of you and me, if you'll allow it. Chloe, we have a protocol. Protocols are for business meetings, not for families, she interrupted gently. When was the last time you really talked with Leo and Noah during a meal? Ethan opened his mouth to answer, but realized he couldn't remember. Meals were always silent, formal. The boys eating politely while he checked his emails on his phone. Let's make tacos, Chloe said enthusiastically. The boys will love it. It's fun, messy, and everyone participates. Tacos. Ethan looked like he had heard a word in a foreign language. Simple tortillas, meat, cheese, vegetables, sauce. Everyone builds their own however they want. It's like an edible puzzle. Leo and Noah appeared at the office door as if summoned by telepathy. Dad, let's make tacos, Leo said, hopping up and down. With melted cheese, Noah added. Ethan looked at the 3 hopeful faces before him and felt his resistance crumble. All right, he sighed. But let's keep it civilized, Chloe laughed. Mr. Caldwell, if tacos end up being civilized, it means we've done something wrong. An hour later, the mansion's kitchen had turned into a culinary battlefield. Ethan, who had swapped his suit for a casual shirt and jeans at Chloe's insistence, stood at the stove, trying to brown the ground beef under the shouted instructions of 3 different teachers. More seasoning, Chloe yelled. Dad, don't let it burn, Leo warned. Stir, 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 Noah sang, clapping his hands. I know what I'm doing, Ethan muttered, clearly not knowing what he was doing. Meanwhile, Chloe and the twins were handling the toppings, or at least trying to. Leo, no. The cheese goes in the bowl, not on your brother, Chloe laughed, stopping a shredded cheese war. But he started it, Leo protested, cheese crumbs stuck in his hair. I didn't do anything, Noah defended himself, clearly guilty. Chloe grabbed a handful of cheese and threw it in the air, letting it fall on her own head. There, now we're all the same. Problem solved. The boys burst out laughing, and Ethan, who had turned to see what was happening, couldn't help but smile. The meat is burning, Noah wailed, pointing to the stove. Oh no! Ethan rushed over, but in his haste he slipped on a piece of lettuce that had fallen on the floor. His arms flailed, searching for balance. He grabbed onto the counter, but ended up knocking over the bowl of diced tomatoes, which flew in every direction. Look out! Chloe shouted, diving to save the salsa, but she collided with Ethan instead. The two found themselves in a clumsy dance, trying not to step on the scattered tomatoes. Chloe clutching the salsa jar like a baby, Ethan still holding the spatula. It's raining tomatoes, Leo exclaimed. It's a food storm, Noah added. Chloe and Ethan looked at each other, covered in flour, cheese, and tomatoes, and started to laugh. First softly, then louder, until they were laughing like mischievous teenagers. Dad looks like a flour ghost, Noah said. And Chloe looks like a walking cheese, Leo added, which only made them laugh even harder. 40 minutes later, they finally managed to gather enough ingredients to make tacos. The kitchen looked like a disaster zone after a food hurricane. Flour on the walls, cheese on the ceiling, lettuce stuck to the refrigerator, and a mysterious salsa footprint on the tile floor. But no one cared. Sitting around the kitchen island on high stools, each was building their taco with the creativity of an artist. Ethan discovered he liked extra cheese and pickles. Leo created a masterpiece with 5 different sauces, and Noah decided that tortillas worked better as hats before eating them. Dad, tell us about your childhood, Leo asked while chewing. My childhood? Ethan seemed surprised. Why do you want to know? Chloe told us that when she was little, she lived with her grandmother who made animal-shaped pancakes, Noah said. What about you? Ethan thought for a moment. It had been so long since he'd talked about his childhood. Well, my grandfather used to teach me how to fish every summer. We always went to Lake Winnipesaukee, and he used to say the secret was to have patience and talk to the fish. Talk to the fish? Leo's eyes widened. That's right. He said that if you told funny stories, they would get curious and come see what was going on. And did it work? Noah asked, fascinated. Sometimes, Ethan smiled, a nostalgic look on his face. Or maybe my grandfather was just very good at picking the right spots. Chloe remained silent, watching Ethan transform in front of his children. His words flowed naturally, his gestures were more relaxed, and there was a light in his eyes she had never seen before. Chloe, tell us more about the pancake grandmother, Leo asked. Her abuela Sofia was an artist, Chloe said with theatrical gestures. She made elephant pancakes, giraffe pancakes, even dragon pancakes, and she always used to say, Mia, food made with love tastes different. Mia? Noah asked, confused. That's what she called me. It means my daughter in Spanish, Chloe explained. She was Mexican. She came to the United States when she was young. Like you, Ethan observed. Chloe blinked, a little surprised by his comment. Yes, like me. Second-generation dreamer. They continued talking as they finished their tacos. The stories flowed easily. Chloe talked about her childhood in a small Miami apartment. Ethan recalled forgotten memories from his youth, and the boys asked 1,000 questions about everything. When they were finally done eating, the kitchen was even messier. But no one wanted the moment to end. Best dinner of my life, Leo declared, slumping on his stool, his belly full. I agree, Noah said, yawning. Ethan looked at the devastated kitchen, then at his happy and satisfied sons. and finally at Chloe, who was gathering the plates with a serene smile. "Chloe," he called softly. "Yes? How do you make everything seem so alive?" Chloe stopped, a plate in her hand, and looked at him. There was something different in his question. It wasn't superficial curiosity, but a genuine search for understanding. "Because I've never had the luxury of living on autopilot," she answered simply. "When you grow up knowing that every day is a victory, you learn to find the magic in the little things." Ethan studied her in silence. There was a depth to Chloe he was only beginning to discover. She wasn't just the funny cleaning lady who made his kids laugh. She was a woman who understood what it truly meant to live. "And you?" Chloe asked in return. "When did you stop living and start just existing?" The question hit him like a punch to the gut. Ethan had no answer, because he knew exactly when it had happened, the day his wife died, when he had decided he would never let anything hurt him that deeply again. "Dad, can we do this every day?" Leo asked, breaking the tense moment. "Every day might be too much work for Chloe," Ethan replied, returning to reality. "Work?" Chloe laughed. "Mr. Caldwell, this wasn't work. This was life." The twins started cleaning up the mess without anyone asking, imitating Chloe's dance moves as they picked up scattered pieces of food. Ethan and Chloe worked side by side, washing dishes and wiping surfaces. Occasionally, their hands would brush as they reached for the same utensil, or their shoulders would touch as they moved around the small sink. They were innocent, accidental touches, but they left a strange feeling in the air. "Zumba Loomba," the boys shouted when they were done, using the magic word Chloe had invented. "Babalu Chubalu," Chloe replied, laughing. Ethan watched the scene, and for the first time in 2 years he couldn't imagine his house without that laughter echoing through the halls. Without this extraordinary woman who had transformed his family before he even realized how much, and that scared him just as much as it gave him hope. 3 days after the taco dinner, Chloe was tidying the playroom when she found a forgotten pink tablet under the sofa. She immediately recognized it as Leo's, the one he always used to carry everywhere. Well, before he lost interest in almost everything. "This boy would forget his head if it wasn't attached," she muttered, picking up the device to take it to the twins' room. But when she touched the screen to check if it was working, the tablet turned on and automatically played the last viewed video. Chloe was about to turn it off when the image froze her in place. On the screen, a beautiful woman with golden hair was sitting on the floor in the same room where Chloe now stood. She was wearing a light blue dress and holding 2 chubby babies on her lap. The video quality showed it had been recorded a few years earlier. "Leo, my love, say mama," the woman on the screen said, tickling one of the babies. "Come on, you can do it." The baby laughed, trying to grab his mother's hair. "And you, Noah, are you going to let your brother win?" She turned to the other baby, who immediately started babbling incomprehensible sounds. Chloe sat down slowly on the sofa, fascinated by the scene. It was clearly the boy's mother, Ethan's wife, the woman who had left such a deep void in the house that her absence was still felt 2 years later. The video continued. The camera, apparently held by Ethan, captured intimate and spontaneous moments. The woman sang lullabies, made funny faces at the babies, and imitated animal sounds that made them burst out laughing. "Clara, are you recording our secret clown training session?" Ethan's voice, younger and full of life, came from the tablet. "Someone has to document the fact that you know how to smile, Mr. Serious CEO," Clara replied, turning to the camera with a radiant smile. "Look, boys, Daddy's happy." The camera shook, showing that Ethan was laughing. Chloe felt her eyes fill with tears. It was impossible not to be moved watching this happy, whole family, filled with love and hope. Ethan looked like a completely different person in the video, relaxed, playful, fully present. The video switched to another scene. Clara was teaching the babies, now a little older, how to clap their hands. She sang a children's song while moving their little hands to the rhythm. "If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands," she sang. "If you're happy and you know it, and you really want to show it, clap your hands." The babies tried to imitate, producing clumsy claps that made Clara laugh out loud. "Ethan, come here," she called. "You have to join our band." "I'm working, love," came his distracted voice. "Work can wait 5 minutes. Your children won't be babies forever." There was a pause, then the sound of approaching footsteps. Ethan appeared on screen and sat on the floor next to Clara. All right, what's my role in this family orchestra? You're the bass, Clara said, taking his hand and guiding it to clap at a slower rhythm. Like this, see? Perfect. Chloe watched the scene, her throat tight. This was proof that Ethan had once been capable of being spontaneous, of living in the moment, of putting his family first. What had happened to that man, Chloe? The voice behind her made her jump. Ethan was standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Mr. Caldwell, I found Leo's tablet and... She stammered, trying to turn off the device, but her hands were shaking. Give me that, he said, holding out his hand in a curt tone. Chloe hesitated. On the screen, Clara was now singing the lullaby. The twins, about a year old, were falling asleep in her arms. Mr. Caldwell, Chloe, turn it off, now. His voice was tense, almost desperate. She looked at the screen, then at him, and saw something that made up her mind. Instead of handing over the tablet, Chloe held it tighter. No. What do you mean, no? They need to remember her laughing, Chloe said softly. And so do you. Ethan took a step forward, extending his hand more firmly. Chloe, you don't understand. I understand that you're scared. She cut him off, getting up but keeping the tablet out of his reach. But look. She turned the screen towards him. In the video, Clara was tickling the twins, who were laughing with pure, contagious joy. Look at how much she loved them. Look at how happy you all were. Ethan froze, his eyes fixed on the image of his wife. His expression hardened. You think I don't know that? That I've forgotten? I think you're trying to forget, Chloe replied softly. And you're dragging your children down with you. You have no right. I have a right to care about these children, she interrupted, but without aggression. Ethan, they have almost no memory of her. Noah was barely 2 when she died. Ethan tried once more to grab the tablet, but Chloe caught his hand. The contact was electric, unexpected, intense. For a moment, they both froze, their hands still intertwined, the tablet between them showing the images of a family that had once been whole. Please, Chloe whispered, let me watch. Let yourself remember her as she truly was. Ethan looked at their joined hands, then at Chloe's face. There was something in her eyes he couldn't resist. Compassion, perhaps, or an understanding that went beyond words. Slowly, he released his hand and sat down heavily on the sofa. Chloe sat next to him, keeping a respectful distance, and held the tablet so they could both see. The video continued. Clara was now reading a book to the twins, using different voices for each character. Ethan appeared in the video from time to time, joining in the story, making the boys laugh. She was good at that, Ethan murmured, breaking the silence. Yes, you can tell she was born to be a mother. She always said she wanted a house full of children, Ethan continued, his voice unsteady. 5, 6 kids. She said she wanted so much noise that the neighbors would complain. Chloe smiled through her tears. She managed to make a lot of noise with just 2. On the tablet, Clara was now singing a song that Chloe recognized, the same tune she had hummed unconsciously a few times while cleaning. You Are My Sunshine, Clara sang in the video. You sing that song, Ethan noted, looking at Chloe. My grandmother used to sing it to me, she replied. It's funny how some songs are passed down through generations, isn't it? They continued to watch in silence. The video showed everyday moments, Clara bathing the babies, Ethan trying and failing miserably to change diapers, the 4 of them in the garden during an impromptu picnic. She would have been 30 next week, Ethan said suddenly. Chloe looked at him, confused. Clara died at 28. If she were alive, she would have... He stopped, realizing the mistake. Sorry, she would have been 30. I still get it wrong sometimes. Chloe felt her chest tighten. Ethan was so lost in his grief that he sometimes forgot the passage of time. The video ended and the screen went black. They sat in silence for a long time. Thank you, Ethan finally said. For what? For reminding me that she was more than just pain. Chloe nodded, discreetly wiping away a tear that had slipped down her face. Your children deserve to know that version of her. And that version of you too. Ethan looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. Something was changing between them. Something beyond the employer-employee relationship. Something they were both beginning to recognize, though neither knew how to handle it. Chloe, he said softly. Yes? Thank you for not giving up. On us. And for the first time since she arrived in this house, Chloe understood that this wasn't just about making the children smile. It was about teaching an entire family how to live again. On Friday morning, Chloe woke up with a strange feeling. The sun was streaming through the window of her small apartment in a special way, as if inviting her to something different. She looked outside and saw children playing in the park across the street, their laughter floating on the air. That's when she got the idea. When she arrived at the Caldwell mansion, she found Leo and Noah in their room quietly playing with building blocks. They looked happy, but there was a certain monotony in the way they played. Always the same toys, always the same controlled environment. "Good morning, Smile Team," Chloe said, entering with her usual energy. "Good morning, Chloe," they replied in unison, running to hug her. "What if we did something different today?" she asked, kneeling down to their level. "Like what?" Leo asked, curious. Chloe glanced out the window. It was one of those perfect spring days in Boston. Blue sky, pleasant temperature, a gentle breeze making the trees dance. What if we explored the outside world? The twins looked at each other, perplexed. "Outside where?" Noah asked. "To the park. That beautiful park just 2 blocks from here. Have you ever been?" The boys shook their heads. "Dad says it's dangerous," Leo said. "And that there are too many strangers," Noah added. Chloe's heart ached. These children were being deprived of one of the most important parts of childhood, the freedom to play with other kids. "You know what I think?" she said, making an impulsive decision. "I think you two deserve to know what it's like to really play." "But Dad is in his office in meetings until 5 p.m. Chloe checked her watch. "It's only 2 p.m. We have plenty of time for a little adventure." She knew she was breaking all the rules. Ethan had been clear about not leaving the property with the children without permission. But seeing these 2 beautiful boys trapped in a glass bubble, Chloe felt that some rules were made to be broken. "But if Dad finds out," Leo hesitated. "I'll take full responsibility," Chloe promised. "Do you trust Auntie Chloe?" They both nodded without hesitation. "Then let's go on an adventure." 15 minutes later, Chloe was walking down the neighborhood streets with a twin on each side, their small hands holding hers tightly. The boys looked around with the curiosity of explorers discovering a new continent. "Wow, so many cars!" Noah exclaimed. "And look at that dog." Leo pointed to a golden retriever walking with its owner. Chloe smiled as she watched their wonder at such ordinary things. When they arrived at the park, the twins' eyes widened. It's huge," Leo whispered. The park was full of life. Children were running on the lawns, families were having picnics, and teenagers were throwing frisbees. There was a colorful playground with slides, swings, and a climbing structure that looked like a castle. Can I go on that?" Noah asked, pointing to the slide. "Of course, let's go." Chloe walked them to the playground. At first, the twins were shy, watching the other children from a distance, but Chloe gently encouraged them. "Look," she said, pointing to a boy their age playing alone in the sandbox. "That little boy looks nice. Why don't you go say hi?" Leo was the first to approach. "Hi," he said shyly. "Can I play?" The boy looked up and smiled. "Sure, I'm building a castle. Want to help?" Within minutes, the 3 of them were working together, creating an elaborate sand fortress. Noah soon joined them, and then 2 other girls came over, curious. Chloe sat on a nearby bench, watching in amazement. The twins were talking, laughing, and negotiating who would build which part of the castle. They were becoming normal, sociable, playful children, exactly as they should be. "Are they yours?" a mother asked as she sat next to Chloe. "I look after them," Chloe replied without going into detail. "They're adorable." "First time at the park?" "Yes," Chloe smiled sadly. "First time in a long time." For nearly an hour, the twins played freely. They went down slides, swung on swings, ran, shouted with joy, and got dirty with dirt and sand. Chloe took a few pictures with her phone, wanting to capture these magical moments. That's when she saw Ethan. He was on the other side of the park, near the parking lot, scanning the area with desperate eyes. When he finally spotted them, his face went through several emotions: relief, anger, confusion. Chloe swallowed hard. She was in trouble. Ethan strode towards them with determined steps. Chloe could see the storm brewing on his face. "Boys," she called softly, "it's time to go." "Already?" Leo protested. "But I haven't finished the castle." "We'll come back another day," Chloe promised, not sure if it was true. Ethan reached them, just as Chloe was helping the boys say goodbye to their new friends. "Dad!" Noah shouted, running to hug his father's legs. "You should have seen it. We made a giant castle, and we met Jake, Emma, Sophie, and Marcus," Leo added enthusiastically. "They're super nice." Ethan looked at his sons, dirty, happy, radiant, and then at Chloe. She stood a few steps back, clearly bracing for the storm. "Chloe," he said in a controlled voice, "can we talk?" She stepped closer, lifting her chin with determination. "Mr. Caldwell, I know you're angry, but you disobeyed a direct order," he cut her off. "I told you not to leave the property with them." "I know, but—" "No buts, Chloe. You put my children in danger." Chloe looked around. The park was full of happy families, children playing under the supervision of parents and caregivers. There was nothing dangerous there. In danger of what? Being happy? Making friends? Being normal kids? "Dad, don't be mad at Chloe," Leo intervened. "This was the best afternoon of our lives." "That's right," Noah agreed. "We had so much fun." Ethan looked at his children, then at Chloe, then at the park around them. He saw other children playing, other parents smiling, entire families enjoying a beautiful day outdoors. He took a deep breath. "Thank you," he said, surprising even himself. Chloe blinked, confused. "Pardon me?" "Thank you," he repeated more firmly, "for reminding me that they need this." Chloe felt her eyes well up with tears. "Mr. Caldwell, Ethan," he corrected her gently. "I think it's time you called me Ethan." The walk home was completely different from the walk there. The twins chatted non-stop about their adventures, recounting every detail to their father, as if they were explorers returning from an epic expedition. Ethan walked beside Chloe, listening to his children's stories with an expression she had never seen before. It was tenderness mixed with regret, joy tinged with a sweet sadness. "They were right," he said as they reached the mansion gates. "About what?" "This really was the best afternoon of their lives in a very long time." Chloe didn't answer, but her heart warmed. As they walked through the mansion's garden, she was so distracted watching Ethan interact with his sons that she didn't watch where she was going. Her foot slipped on the grass, still wet from the irrigation system. "Watch out!" Ethan shouted, rushing to catch her. His arms wrapped around Chloe's waist, just as she started to fall. The momentum spun them around, and when they finally stopped, she was pressed against his chest, her hands resting on his shoulders. They froze. Chloe could feel Ethan's heart beating against her chest. She could see every detail of his green eyes, the small scar near his left eyebrow, the way his lips parted slightly. Ethan looked at her, as if he were seeing her for the very first time. Her face flushed from the walk, her eyes shining with sincere happiness, her lips slightly parted in surprise. They moved closer, slowly, inevitably. It was as if the whole world had stopped to watch this moment. The wind fell silent. The birds fell silent. Even the twins fell silent, closer. Ethan's lips were almost touching Chloe's. "Dad?" Leo shouted. "Did you see a blue butterfly?" They broke apart quickly, as if waking from a dream. Chloe nervously smoothed her hair. Ethan cleared his throat and adjusted a tie he wasn't even wearing. Chloe began. "We should," Ethan said at the same time. They looked at each other and laughed awkwardly. "Let's go inside," Ethan suggested, still unable to take his eyes off her. "Good idea," Chloe agreed, her heart still pounding. As they walked towards the house, neither of them mentioned what had almost happened, but they both knew that something had changed forever. In the 3 days that followed the near kiss in the garden, Chloe and Ethan developed an impressive ability to avoid each other. She would arrive earlier and stay downstairs. He would leave the office later and always find an excuse not to come down when she was there. It was an elaborate dance of avoidance, and the only ones who didn't understand the game were Leo and Noah. "Why doesn't Dad have dinner with us anymore?" Leo asked on Wednesday, sadly stirring his soup. "And why does Chloe turn all red when someone talks about Dad?" Noah observed with the insight of a 6-year-old. Chloe nearly choked. "I don't turn red," she protested, blushing obviously. "Yes, you do," Leo insisted, "like when we eat hot peppers." That was the moment the twins got the idea. On Thursday morning, as Chloe was cleaning the library, she heard excited whispers upstairs, then hurried footsteps, muffled laughter, and the unmistakable sound of children plotting. "Mrs. Davis!" Leo called, running into the kitchen. "Can you help us with a secret project?" The housekeeper, who had grown particularly fond of the twins since Chloe brought them back to life, raised a curious eyebrow. What kind of secret project? A surprise party, Noah declared, as if it were the most brilliant idea in history. And who is the party for? The boys looked at each other. For Chloe and Dad to be friends again, Leo said with the brutal frankness of children. Mrs. Davis smiled. She had noticed the strange tension between the two in recent days. And what do you need for this party? Everything, they shouted together. 2 hours later, the living room had been transformed into a scene worthy of a children's party organized by, well, 6-year-olds. There were colorful paper garlands hung completely unevenly, balloons taped to the walls, a makeshift table with all the snacks from the pantry, crackers, cookies, chips, some fruit. Mrs. Davis had insisted on adding apple juice poured into crystal glasses because a party should be chic. The special touch was the handmade paper hats, decorated with drawings of flowers that looked more like colorful explosions, and little notes scattered around the room with messages like, Chloe, you are the best cleaning lady in the world, and Dad likes you. Dad smiles when Chloe is here. You're both silly, but we love you. Leo and Noah waited patiently for Ethan to come down for lunch and for Chloe to appear to clean the room. Surprise! They shouted when Chloe opened the door. She stopped, dumbfounded, looking at the chaotic but loving decoration. What is this? It's a party for you and Dad to be friends again, Noah explained, putting a pink paper hat on her head. Friends? We've always been... Chloe began, but was interrupted by Ethan's arrival. He stopped at the threshold, observing the scene. Chloe with a ridiculous hat on her head, the boys wearing their own homemade hats, the living room decorated as if a colorful tornado had passed through it. Dad! Leo ran to him and put a crooked blue hat on his head. You're just in time for our friendship party. Ethan looked at Chloe. Chloe looked at him. Both were wearing paper hats made by 6-year-olds in the middle of a room decorated with all the subtlety of a carnival. It was impossible to maintain any tension in such an absurd situation. Chloe was the first to laugh, a small giggle that turned into a full, sincere laugh. Ethan followed, laughing at the scene, the ridiculous hats and his children's determination to solve a problem they didn't even know existed. All right, he said, adjusting the hat on his head. What's the schedule for this party? First, you have to sit on the couch together, Noah ordered, clearly following a carefully laid plan. Together, together, Leo reinforced, pushing Chloe towards the couch. Super close. Chloe and Ethan sat down, keeping a respectful distance. But the twins were not satisfied. Closer, Noah insisted, literally pushing Chloe sideways until she was pressed against Ethan's arm. Now you eat cookies and talk about grown-up stuff, Leo declared, holding out a plate of cookies. What kind of grown-up stuff? Ethan asked, genuinely curious about his children's perspective. I don't know. Work bills. Why you act weird whenever you're in the same room, Noah said with devastating honesty. Chloe choked on her cookie. We don't act weird, Ethan defended. Yes, you do, Leo insisted. You act like the people in Mrs. Davis's movies who stare at each other and then run out the kitchen door. Mrs. Davis chuckled softly. Now you have to make a toast, Noah announced, handing them each a glass of juice. A toast to what? Chloe asked. To... Leo thought for a moment. To our family. Chloe and Ethan looked at each other. The word family hung in the air like an unanswered question. To our family, Ethan said softly, raising his glass. To our family? Chloe repeated, clinking her glass with his. The twins clapped as if they had just witnessed the greatest victory in history. The party continued for another half hour, with the boys inventing silly games like who can eat the most cookies without laughing, and statue dance with hats, which ended with everyone piled on the floor laughing. When the fun finally started to wind down, Ethan cleared his throat. Actually, I wanted to invite you to something, he said, addressing Chloe mainly but including the boys. To what? She asked. Tomorrow night, there's an event at the boys' school, a musical performance followed by a dinner. I'd like you to come with us. Chloe blinked, surprised. As a guest, as a member of the family, he said simply. The twins burst with joy, as if it were the best Christmas present of their lives. Chloe's coming with us, Leo sang, It's going to be the best night ever, Noah added. Chloe looked at Ethan, searching for any sign that he was just being polite, but there was something sincere in his eyes. A genuine invitation to be part of something bigger. I'd love to, she said softly. The next evening, Chloe dressed with more care than she had in years. She chose a simple but elegant navy blue dress, tied her hair in a low bun, and even borrowed some lipstick from her neighbor. When she came downstairs to meet Ethan and the twins, her heart was pounding. Ethan looked handsome in a dark gray suit, and the boys were adorable in matching blazers. Chloe, Noah shouted, you look like a princess. A very beautiful princess, Leo added. Ethan nodded discreetly, but the look he gave her said much more than words. The event at Riverside Elementary School was filled with elegant families. Chloe felt a little intimidated at first, but Ethan stayed by her side, introducing her naturally as Chloe, who looks after the boys. During the musical performance, Leo and Noah sang a song about farm animals with their class. Chloe watched, her eyes filled with tears of pride as if they were her own children on stage. They're wonderful, she whispered to Ethan. Yes, they are, he agreed. And look how confident they are. That's new. After the show, the twins' teacher, Miss Henderson, approached them. Mr. Caldwell, what a pleasure to see you here. And you must be Chloe, she said warmly, smiling. The boys talk about you all the time. I hope they're good things, Chloe laughed. Wonderful things. In fact, I wanted to talk to you both about the remarkable progress Leo and Noah have made in recent weeks. Ethan sat up straighter, suddenly attentive. What kind of progress? Well, when they joined my class at the beginning of the year, they barely interacted with the other children. They always stayed together, spoke softly, and seemed distant. But in the last few weeks, it's as if they've become completely different children. Chloe and Ethan exchanged a look. What do you mean? Chloe asked. Now they start conversations with other kids. They participate in group activities. They even lead games at recess. Yesterday, Leo helped a new student join the group. It's a remarkable change. Ethan watched the twins playing with the other children, lively and sociable. Thank you so much for telling us, he said. You're very welcome. You're doing a wonderful job with them. It's clear there's a lot of love at home. When the teacher walked away, Chloe and Ethan stood in silence for a moment. She thinks we're married, Chloe said softly. I know, Ethan replied. And you know what's strange? For a moment I forgot we weren't. Before Chloe could respond, a school photographer approached. Sorry to interrupt, but would you like a family photo? We're taking pictures of all the families tonight. Chloe hesitated, ready to back away. Actually, she began. We'd love to, Ethan interrupted, gently placing a hand on her back. The twins ran to get in place, and Chloe found herself standing between Ethan and Noah, with Leo on her father's other side. Say cheese, the photographer ordered. Cheese. They all shouted, Chloe included. The flash went off, capturing a moment that felt completely natural, completely real. A family. When they received the photo a few minutes later, Chloe held it with trembling hands. There they were, Ethan with a sincere smile, her own face beaming, and the twins absolutely joyful between them. It felt so real, so right, so much like something she hadn't even known she wanted until that very moment. Could I keep a copy? She asked softly. Keep this one, Ethan said. I'll order another one for us. For us? The words echoed in Chloe's mind all the way home, as the twins dozed in the back seat and Ethan drove in silence. For a moment in that school, she had felt like she was part of something she had never had, a real family. On Saturday morning, Chloe woke up earlier than usual in her small apartment. The family photo was on her nightstand, and she had caught herself looking at it at least 10 times before falling asleep the previous night. She made herself a coffee and called her mother in Miami, as she did every weekend. Hola, mija! Sofia Martinez's warm voice came from the other end of the line. How are things over there? Hi, Mom, it's complicated. Complicated? How? Is work not going well? Chloe sighed, looking out the window at the quiet Boston streets. Work is great. Better than great, actually. It's just, she hesitated. I think I'm being stupid. I'm getting attached. Attached to what, Misha? The children? The house? Him? There was a pause on the other end. Oh, Sophia said with that tone mothers use when they know exactly what's going on. And him? He's my boss, Mom. He's a widower. He has 2 children. He's a millionaire. And I'm his cleaning lady. It's impossible. Chloe Isabel Martinez, Sophia said firmly. Since when do you define yourself by your job? You are so much more than that. But Mom, no buts. You have a heart as big as Texas and a beautiful soul. If this man can't see that, it's his loss, not yours. Chloe felt her eyes fill with tears. It's just that sometimes I forget I'm not really part of his family. Yesterday we took a photo together, and for a moment I really believed it. You believed what? That maybe this is where I belong. Sophia was silent for a moment. Mija, have you told him how you feel? Of course not. That would be the fastest way to get fired. Or maybe it would be the most wonderful surprise of his life, Sophia suggested gently. Sometimes people just need someone to be brave first. While Chloe was talking with her mother in her apartment across town, Ethan was having a similar conversation with his older sister, Olivia. You seem different, Olivia observed, who had come over for lunch and to bring gifts for her nephews. More alive. Ethan was making sandwiches in the kitchen, something Olivia hadn't seen him do in 2 years. Different how? I don't know, lighter. The boys seem different too. They're talking, laughing, acting like normal kids. They've always been normal kids, Ethan said defensively. Ed, you know that's not true. Since Clara died, they were checked out. And so were you. Ethan stopped cutting the tomatoes and looked at his sister. And now you all seem like a real family again. What changed? Ethan hesitated. We hired a new helper, Chloe. She looks after the boys and, well, she's kind of turned everything upside down. Upside down? How? She makes the boys laugh. They sing with her, play, make up silly games. Yesterday, they even threw a surprise party for me and Chloe because they thought we were mad at each other. Olivia smiled. And were you? We were avoiding each other, Ethan admitted. It's complicated. Complicated? Why? Ethan let out a deep sigh. I don't know what's happening, Olivia, but she's become the center of the house. When she's not here, everything feels empty. The boys ask for her. I find myself wondering what she would say about something. Even the food tastes better when she's here. Ethan, Olivia placed her hand on her brother's arm. You're falling in love with her. Don't be ridiculous. I'm being realistic. You just described all the classic signs. Ethan shook his head. She's an employee, Olivia, and I can't do that to Clara. Clara's been gone for 2 years, Ed, Olivia said gently, and if she were here, she'd be the first one to push you towards happiness again. Ethan remained silent, absorbing his sister's words. Besides, Olivia continued, from what you've told me, she's not just an employee. She's the one who brought your family back to life. In the days that followed, Chloe and Ethan were both lost in their thoughts, trying to make sense of the confusing feelings they were experiencing. Chloe found herself daydreaming while cleaning, imagining what it would be like if this were really her house, if the twins were really her children, if Ethan looked at her as more than the person who took care of his family. Ethan, for his part, began to notice small details he had never paid attention to before. How Chloe hummed while she worked, how her eyes lit up when the boys told a story, how she bit her lower lip when she concentrated. It was on Wednesday that everything changed. Chloe arrived at the mansion at her usual time, but as she approached the main entrance, she froze as if struck by lightning. Ethan was at the front door with a stunning woman. She was tall, elegant, with impeccable blonde hair, dressed in a red suit that probably cost more than what Chloe earned in 3 months. They were talking intimately, and the woman touched Ethan's arm as she laughed at something he said. Chloe hid behind one of the cars parked in the driveway, her heart pounding. The woman clearly belonged in Ethan's world, sophisticated, beautiful, probably well-educated and with an enviable bank account. Everything Chloe wasn't. Thank you for letting me come to your home, Ed, the woman said, her voice carrying clearly to Chloe's hiding spot. I know it's not easy for you to let people into your personal space. It wasn't a problem at all, Isabella, Ethan replied. The boys need to get used to having new people around. Isabella laughed, a clear musical sound. They're adorable. And they obviously need a mother figure in their lives. Chloe felt as if icy water had been poured over her. Let's take it slow, Ethan said. But yes, I think it's time to move on. I'll be here when you're ready. Isabella gently touched his face. Clara would want you to be happy again. Chloe's breath caught. This woman knew Clara. She was probably a family friend, someone Ethan had known for years, someone who belonged in his world in a way Chloe never could. She waited until Isabella got into a silver BMW and left the property before she moved. By the time she reached the back door, her legs were trembling and she felt nauseous. "Chloe!" Leo ran to hug her as soon as she entered. "You're here!" Dad was talking with Aunt Isabella. Aunt Isabella? Chloe forced a smile. "She was Mommy's friend," Noah explained. "She's very pretty and smells like flowers." "That's nice," Chloe managed to say, though her own voice sounded strange to her. Ethan entered the kitchen at that moment, looking different. Lighter, perhaps, like someone who had made an important decision. "Chloe, you're here. How was traffic?" "Normal," she replied, avoiding his gaze. I'm going to start cleaning upstairs." She quickly left the kitchen before he could notice that something was wrong. For the rest of the day, Chloe worked on autopilot. She cleaned, organized, played with the boys when necessary, but her mind was elsewhere. Of course, Ethan was moving on. Of course, he had found someone who matched his social status. Someone who could be the right mother for his children, the right wife for a millionaire CEO. Chloe had been foolish to think she could ever be more than the employee who had temporarily helped the family recover from their grief. "Chloe, are you okay?" Noah asked during snack time. "You look sad." "I'm fine, sweetie," she lied, forcing another smile. "Just a little tired." "Do you want to lie down with us and listen to stories?" Leo proposed. "Sometimes that helps when you're sad." Chloe's heart broke a little more. These boys loved her, and she would have to leave their lives once Ethan remarried. "Maybe later," she said. "For now, I have to finish my work." Ethan immediately noticed the change. Chloe was distant, formal, efficient, but cold. She no longer hummed while she worked, no longer invented spontaneous games with the boys, no longer smiled in that way that lit up the whole house. On Thursday, he found her silently cleaning the library. "Chloe, did something happen? You seem different." "I'm fine, Mr. Caldwell," she replied, reverting to the formal tone she hadn't used in weeks. "Mr. Caldwell?" He frowned. "I thought we were past that." "I'm sorry, it was a professional slip." Ethan studied her for a moment. Something was wrong. Very wrong, but he couldn't figure out what. "Chloe, if I did something—" "You didn't do anything," she cut him off. "I'm just remembering my place here." And with that, she left the library, leaving Ethan completely confused and with the oppressive feeling that he had lost something important without even knowing what it was. That evening, Chloe called her mother again. "Mom," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, "I think I need to look for another job." "Why, Mia?" "What happened?" "I was right all along. I was stupid to get attached. He's moving on with someone who fits his life." "Chloe." "No, Mom, it was good while it lasted, but it's time to get back to reality." And for the first time since she arrived at the Caldwell house, Chloe cried, because sometimes reality hurts more than any unfulfilled dream. Friday morning arrived with a classic Boston storm. Chloe arrived at the Caldwell mansion soaked, even though she had run from the bus stop to the door. Her mood was as heavy as the gray sky. She had spent the entire night rehearsing her resignation speech. It would be professional, polite, and brief. She wouldn't mention Isabella. She wouldn't talk about confused feelings. She would simply say she had found a better opportunity elsewhere. Ethan was in the kitchen when she entered, making breakfast for the twins, something he rarely did before Chloe came into their lives. "Good morning," he said, turning around with a smile that vanished as soon as he saw her face. "Chloe, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "We need to talk," she said formally. "When the boys aren't around?" Ethan's stomach clenched. Her tone, the distance, the formality, it all spelled trouble. "Of course. After lunch, the boys will be napping." Chloe nodded and left the kitchen without another word. The day dragged on painfully. Ethan couldn't focus on anything, worried about what Chloe wanted to tell him. She, on the other hand, worked with mechanical efficiency, barely interacting with the twins and avoiding all eye contact with him. At 2 p.m., after putting Leo and Noah down for their nap, Chloe met Ethan in his office. "Mr. Caldwell, I've come to inform you that I will be leaving my position here." The words hit him like a bullet, direct and devastating. Ethan shot up from his chair so quickly, he knocked over a glass of water. "What? Why?" "I've found a better opportunity," she lied, staring at a spot on the wall behind him. What opportunity, Chloe? If it's a matter of salary, it's not about the money. Then what is it? Ethan walked around the desk, getting closer to her. Chloe, look at me. She finally looked at him, and in her eyes he saw something that told him everything. Pain, disappointment, resignation. Something happened, he said. You've been different since Wednesday. What did I do? You didn't do anything wrong, Chloe sighed. It's for the best. The best for who? For me. For the boys? They'll be devastated. They'll adapt. Children are resilient. And me? The question came out more vulnerable than he had intended. Chloe closed her eyes for a moment. You'll adapt too, especially when you move on with your life. Ethan frowned. Move on with my life? What are you talking about? About Isabella, Chloe said, finally looking him straight in the eye. I saw you talking on Wednesday. She's perfect for you. For the boys. Ethan's face went through several expressions. Confusion, understanding, and then something that looked like relief. Chloe, he said, starting to smile. Isabella is the decorator I hired to plan the twins' birthday party. Chloe blinked. What? She's married, has 3 children, and was friends with Clara since college. I brought her over because she needs to know the boys well to plan a party they'll truly enjoy. But I heard, Chloe stammered. She said something about the boys needing a mother figure. Because she was suggesting I hire a full-time nanny. Ethan started to laugh. Chloe, did you really think I was... The reality hit Chloe with full force. She had completely misinterpreted the situation. Oh my God, I'm so stupid, she whispered, covering her face with her hands. No, you're not, Ethan said softly. You're jealous. Chloe removed her hands, blushing. I wasn't jealous. Yes, you were. And you know what? Ethan took another step closer to her. I'm glad. Why? Because it means you care about me as much as I care about you. The words hung in the air between them. Chloe opened her mouth but couldn't form a response. Ethan took a deep breath. Chloe, since you arrived here, everything has changed. My boys came back to life. I started smiling again. This house became a home. And he hesitated. I've fallen in love with you. Ethan, she whispered. I know it's complicated. I know we started as boss and employee, but I can't pretend that's all it is anymore. Chloe felt tears welling up in her eyes. I've fallen in love with you too, she admitted. And with the boys, with this crazy family you've let me be a part of. Ethan broke into a wide smile, a smile she hadn't seen in days. Then why do you want to leave? Because I'm scared, she said honestly. Scared of not being good enough. Of not belonging in your world. Chloe, you don't belong in my world, Ethan said, confusing her for a moment. You created a new world for us, a better one. He was about to say more when a clap of thunder shook the house, followed by the roar of pouring rain. The storm is getting worse, Chloe noted, looking out the window. How are you going to get home in this weather? Ethan asked, concerned. I'll wait for it to calm down a bit. But the rain showed no sign of letting up. On the contrary, the wind began to howl, bending the trees in the garden. An hour later, when the twins woke up from their nap, the storm was still raging. Chloe can't go out in this rain, Leo declared, looking out the living room window. She can sleep here, Noah suggested. In the guest room. Ethan and Chloe exchanged a look. That's not a bad idea, he said. The forecast says the storm will last all night. Chloe hesitated. Staying in the house, especially after their conversation, felt dangerous. But outside, the wind was already tearing branches from the trees. Okay, she agreed. But I need to go to my apartment to get some things. I'll take you, Ethan offered. That's not necessary. Chloe, I'm not letting you go out alone in this storm. Half an hour later, they were running from the garage to Ethan's car, completely soaked in a matter of steps. This is crazy, Chloe shouted over the roar of the wind. Absolutely, Ethan agreed, laughing, struggling to open the car door. The drive to Chloe's apartment was an adventure. Ethan drove slowly with almost zero visibility due to the rain. They talked about trivial things, both avoiding the subject of the love confession that had taken place earlier. In Chloe's apartment, while she packed some clothes for the night, Ethan looked around the small space. It was warm, full of bright colors and family photos, very different from the formal coldness of his mansion. Ready, Chloe said, coming out of the bedroom with a small bag. Chloe, Ethan said, standing in front of a photo of her with an older woman. "Is that your grandmother?" "That's Abuela Sofia. She raised me after my father left. She seemed like a special woman." "She was. She always used to say, 'True love doesn't choose based on social class, skin color, or bank account. It chooses with the heart.'" Ethan turned to her. She was right. The return trip was even more dramatic. The wind had picked up, and as they got out of the car in the mansion's garage, a gust tore the umbrella from Ethan's hands, turning it inside out. They ran towards the door, but Chloe slipped on the wet grass. Ethan caught her, but lost his balance too. They both fell onto the lawn, soaked and covered in mud. "We look ridiculous," Chloe laughed, wiping dirt from her face. "Completely," Ethan agreed. They got up, still laughing, and ran to the porch. When they were finally under cover, Ethan looked at Chloe. She was soaked from head to toe, her hair plastered to her face, mud stains on her clothes. And she had never looked more beautiful. "Chloe," he said, suddenly serious, "I don't know how to describe you. I don't know if it's fate, luck, or a miracle, but without you, this house goes back to being just a house. My children go back to being just sad children, and I go back to being just an empty man." Chloe looked at him, his words echoing in her heart. "Then it's time you learn to clean up this emotional mess you call a heart," she said, taking a step toward him. And then, without further hesitation, she kissed him. The kiss was everything neither of them expected and everything they both needed. It was soft and urgent, shy and passionate, a promise and an answer all at once. When they broke apart, they were both breathless. "Does this mean you're not leaving?" Ethan asked, resting his forehead against hers. "It means I've found my place in the world," Chloe replied. "And it's here with you." 2 weeks after the kiss in the storm, the big day arrived, Leo and Noah's 7th birthday. Chloe had spent the last few weeks working with Isabella to transform the Caldwell's garden into a veritable amusement park. "Attention, team!" Chloe shouted into the megaphone borrowed from Mrs. Davis, who had suggested it after seeing her fail to make herself heard while trying to coordinate 5 different vendors. "The clowns are arriving in 15 minutes. I want all the balloons in place now!" Ethan watched from a distance, laughing at how seriously Chloe was taking every detail of the party. She was wearing a yellow t-shirt with the words "Director of Fun," which the twins had decorated just for her. "Chloe looks like a general commanding her troops," Olivia commented, who had come early to help. "A very cute general," Ethan agreed, unable to take his eyes off his girlfriend. "Yes, girlfriend." The word still sounded strange but wonderful. "Ethan Caldwell." Chloe's voice boomed through the megaphone. "I need you here now. At your service, General." He shouted back, running towards her. Chloe was standing next to a table that looked like a sugar-coated battlefield. There were pieces of cake everywhere, frosting on the tent walls, and a Spider-Man figurine hanging upside down from a palm tree. "What happened here?" Ethan asked, trying not to laugh. "The twins wanted to help decorate the cake," Chloe explained, pointing to Leo and Noah, who were covered in blue frosting from head to toe. "And I made the mistake of giving them creative freedom." "Surprise!" the 2 boys shouted, holding out their arms to show off their sugary masterpiece. The original cake, which was supposed to look like an elegant castle, now looked more like a colorful explosion. There was frosting of every imaginable color, candies stuck to the sides, and what appeared to be an entire family of action figures emerging from the top. "It's unique," Ethan said diplomatically. "It's hideous," Chloe laughed, "but they're so proud that I don't have the heart to redo it." "Then don't, it's perfect as it is." At 3 p.m., the garden was full of children running in every direction. The bouncy castle had turned into a friendly war zone. The face-painting table had a line of 15 kids, and the clowns were doing magic tricks that impressed the adults even more than the children. Chloe was everywhere at once, breaking up fights over balloons, tending to scraped knees, serving slices of the explosion cake, and making sure every child was having fun. "She's incredible," Olivia said to Ethan, who was watching Chloe teach a group of kids how to make giant soap bubbles. "Oh, yes," he agreed with that blissful smile Olivia hadn't seen on her brother's face in years. The most chaotic moment came during the water fight Chloe had organized. What was supposed to be a controlled activity with water guns quickly turned into an epic battle, involving hoses, buckets, and even the garden's sprinkler system. Ethan, who had initially tried to stay dry by watching from a distance, was dragged into the chaos when Noah shouted, "Dad, You're on Chloe's team." Before he could defend himself, he was bombarded by 10 kids armed with water guns. Within seconds, the millionaire CEO was soaked, running through the garden like a child, trying to get revenge on an army of little water warriors. "Get him," Leo shouted, pointing at his father. "Traitor!" Ethan laughed, diving behind a tree to protect himself from the coordinated attack. Chloe watched the scene, her heart overflowing. Ethan had traded his suit for shorts and a t-shirt. He was completely soaked. His hair was a mess and he looked like a 10-year-old boy again. "Chloe!" One of the mothers called out, "The cake is falling." She ran to the cake table and saw that the twins' unstable masterpiece was slowly leaning to one side. Without thinking, Chloe threw herself forward to hold it up with her own hands. "Can someone help me here?" she shouted, clinging to the frosting castle that was about to collapse completely. Ethan came running, still dripping from the water fight. "What do I do?" "Hold it here." Chloe nodded towards the spot he should support. They stood there, united in a desperate mission to save the disaster cake, when Ethan looked at her and started to laugh. "What are you laughing at?" Chloe asked, trying to keep a straight face. "At us, look at us. I'm a millionaire CEO trying to save a cake that looks like it was hit by a hurricane. You're an incredible woman who has turned my house into a circus, and here we are covered in frosting and water, surrounded by 30 screaming children." He paused. "And I have never been happier in my life." Chloe's heart skipped a beat. "Ethan." "Chloe," he said, ignoring the fact that they were still holding a collapsing cake. "After this, you're not running away again. Will you officially be my girlfriend and the boy's mom?" Time stood still. The children continued to scream in the background. The cake still threatened to fall, but for Chloe and Ethan, the world had shrunk to this single moment. "Are you sure this is what you want?" she asked, searching his eyes for any trace of hesitation. "If it's not you, it doesn't make sense," Ethan replied with a certainty that made her melt. A kiss," shouted Leo and Noah, who had come closer and understood what was happening. Soon all the children at the party joined in. A kiss, a kiss, a kiss. Chloe looked at the expectant faces, then back at Ethan. "Well," she said with a smile, "the public has spoken." And there, in the middle of the messy garden, holding up a cake that defied all laws of physics, Chloe and Ethan kissed, while 30 children clapped and shouted with joy. A week after the twins' legendary birthday, Ethan was in his office, trying to focus on quarterly reports. When laughter echoed from the hallway, he saved his document, closed the laptop, and went to see. Chloe was in the main room, teaching Leo and Noah how to dance the salsa using a broom as an impromptu partner. "Now you turn like this," she demonstrated, twirling the broom as if it were a graceful partner. "Spin!" The boys tried to imitate her, stumbling over their own feet and collapsing on top of each other in a heap of laughter. "Dad!" Noah shouted when he saw him. "Chloe is teaching us to dance for when we're grown up and want to go on dates with girls. Long-term strategy," Chloe explained with mock seriousness. "Men who can dance are irresistible." Ethan laughed as he watched the scene. In recent days, he had noticed how the house completely transformed whenever Chloe was there. It was as if she carried sunlight with her into every corner. "Chloe," he said, interrupting the dance lesson, "can I talk to you?" "Of course." "Boys, keep practicing. I want to see perfect spins when I get back." They went to the office and Ethan closed the door behind them. "Sit down," he said, pointing to the chair opposite his desk. Chloe obeyed, suddenly nervous. "Did I do something wrong? Are the cleaning reports late?" "I can explain the ink stain on the living room rug. It was a total accident when—" "Chloe," Ethan cut her off, smiling. "You didn't do anything wrong." "Oh, then—" Ethan took a deep breath. "I want you to move in here officially." Chloe blinked several times. "What do you mean by officially?" "As a member of the family, as my girlfriend, as the person who has turned this house into a real home." The words came out of his mouth in a rush. "But Ethan, I don't know if that's a good idea. It's too fast and your neighbors will talk and the boys might be confused about my role here and—" Ethan stood up, walked around the desk, and knelt in front of her. "Chloe, look at me." She stopped talking and met his gaze. "I love you. The boys love you. You are already part of this family in every way that matters. The only thing missing is for you to bring your things here and make it official." Chloe felt tears welling up in her eyes. Are you sure? I'm sure that I can't imagine a single day without you here. What if it doesn't work out? It will work out, he said with conviction, because we are already working. Chloe looked at the desk, then back at Ethan. Okay, she said softly. I accept. Yes, shouted Leo and Noah in unison from the other side of the door. Ethan frowned. Were you eavesdropping? The door opened and the twins rushed inside. Sorry, Dad, but we wanted to know if Chloe was going to live with us forever, Leo explained. And now she is, Noah exclaimed, jumping for joy. Chloe hugged them, one child in each arm. Are you sure you want a crazy cleaning lady living in your house? We want you to live in our house, Leo corrected. The Chloe who sings, who dances, who makes food fly, and who makes Dad smile. Exactly, Noah approved. The Chloe who belongs with us. Ethan watched the scene, his heart overflowing. 3 days later, Chloe officially moved into the Caldwell mansion. She didn't have much, some clothes, books, a photo of her grandmother Sophia, and an impressive collection of cleaning products that she insisted on bringing because the ones you have are worthless. Mrs. Davis had prepared the main guest room for her, but Chloe ended up spending most of her time in the twins' room, telling stories until they fell asleep, or in the living room with Ethan, watching old movies and eating popcorn. Life in the house changed completely. Ethan, who had always been punctual and methodical, started arriving late to the office for the first time in his career. His employees grew concerned until they found out the reason was that he preferred to stay home for breakfast with his family. Mr. Caldwell, his secretary said one morning, you have a meeting with the investors in 10 minutes. Cancel it, Ethan replied distractedly, reading a message from Chloe on his phone. Chloe wants to have a picnic in the garden. But sir, they're the main investors. Margaret, Ethan smiled. I spent 2 years living only for work. Now I have better reasons to live. That afternoon, the 4 of them were spread out on a blanket in the garden. Ethan had asked Mrs. Davis to prepare sandwiches, fruit and lemonade for the impromptu picnic. Look, Noah said, pointing to a cloud. It looks like a dragon eating an ice cream. Where? Chloe followed his finger. Oh, I see it. And that one looks like a ballerina. That one looks like Dad's face when he's angry, Leo observed, pointing to a dark, heavy cloud. Hey! Ethan protested, throwing a grape at him. Chloe stood up, grabbed a dish towel they had used to wrap the sandwiches, and placed it on her head like a veil. I am Princess Chloe of the Dish Towel Kingdom, she declared in a pompous voice, and I decree that in this kingdom everyone must laugh at least 15 times a day. The twins burst out laughing. Princess Chloe, Leo said, giving an exaggerated bow, what does the princess desire for lunch? I desire magic sandwiches and enchanted lemonade, she replied, maintaining the royal tone. Ethan watched the scene, shaking his head but smiling. You're crazy, he said, his voice filled with affection. Chloe took the dish towel off her head and threw it at him. And you're a former refrigerator in love, she teased, laughing. Former refrigerator? Noah asked, confused. Yes, Chloe explained. Your dad was cold and serious like a refrigerator, but now he's melted and turned into delicious ice cream. Dad turned into ice cream. The twins shouted. What flavor am I? Ethan asked, joining the game. Vanilla, Leo shouted, because you're so pale. I think he's chocolate, Noah objected. Because chocolate is the best flavor in the world and Dad is the best dad in the world. Ethan felt his eyes fill with tears. He lifted Noah and hugged him tightly. And you are the best sons in the universe. Chloe looked at the family that had become her own, her heart filled with a happiness she never thought possible. Group hug, she declared, joining the pile of arms and laughter. As the sun set on the garden of the Caldwell mansion, 4 people hugged on a picnic blanket, surrounded by sandwich crumbs, empty lemonade cups, and the sound of sincere laughter. And for the first time in a long time, the house wasn't just a place they lived, it was a home where they were happy. What did you think of Chloe and Ethan's story? Share your thoughts in the comments.